It's a new day and it's a new opportunity to look at global economics as well as politics. What's going on, everybody? It's Professor Zeus, and I'm back with another video. Yo, if this is your first time at the channel, just know I greatly appreciate you for stopping by. Go ahead and hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. I feel a lot of people, are watching my videos, but they're not subscribing. Please subscribe. It'll help the channel out a lot. Guys, as of recently, you guys can probably tell that I've been, really looking at, manufacturing production, the Chinese trade war with the United States and different things like that, because I feel like a lot of us are not informed. And, I try to be as lighthearted as possible, but I feel it's really important that, we know what's going on in the world. There's so many different things that can distract us, and there's so many moving parts that are happening in the world. And I'm always a proponent of, saying that, only focus on things that you have direct control over. But there are some things that we have to do when it comes to paying attention to what's going on in the world at large, because some of these things will affect our daily lives, whether we like it or not. So I feel like it's best that we are informed on certain things. So today we're continuing to look at the United States China trade war. Also, Elon Musk, he's potentially, building a Tesla factory in India. And that's just so funny because, everybody's talking about bringing manufacturing jobs to America. And then we have this American company, Tesla, wanting to build a factory in India. So we'll go over that. And, just this whole how our administration right now is going about, bringing back jobs and different things like that. So, it's going to be a wild ride, and I'm trying to give you guys as much information as I can. And, you pick out what you want, pick out what you think applies to you, and, just apply it. So, again, just a quick recap. The United States trade war with China, it's like a soap opera that's never ending. We got tariffs on Chinese goods, retaliatory tariffs from China, and a whole lot of yelling about who's stealing whose jobs, right? And at the same time, us as the American consumers, we're paying higher prices, and companies like Tesla, they're looking for ways to still make money in this market and to dodge all the drama that's going on. So let's first start off looking at Elon Musk, our good old boy Elon. The guy who's just one tweet away from starting an international crisis. So word on the street right now is that Tesla is essentially exploring building a factory in India. He's meeting with Prime Minister Modi, I believe. Um, and why is this important? Because India has a growing market. They got cheap labor, and it's just another way for Tesla again to make money in this market and to avoid all these U.S. China tariffs, because again, like I've covered before, Tesla and Elon are directly affected by all these things that are happening. So the way I look at it, it's a smart move from Elon, but the issue is it doesn't necessarily scream "Make America Great Again," right? A lot of people have been saying how Tesla is the number one American car company in the world right now, but when you have him looking to not build a factory in America but build a factory in India, it's kind of alarming, because what's the whole point of screaming about manufacturing jobs, bringing production back to America, if you're just going to go back to India to build a factory, right? So you know, this whole idea of bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States is just so funny, because again, I've stated in previous videos, 80% of Americans want to bring back manufacturing back to America. But out of that 80, 20% of people are not willing to sacrifice or swap out their current desk job with working in the coal factory, or working in I said coal factory, a coal mine or a factory to put together batteries for Teslas. That's just, nobody's willing to do that, but everybody wants production to come back, but nobody's willing to actually do the job. It's just so funny. And if you're Elon, you're thinking, huh, I'd actually rather pay Indian workers than to deal with American labor costs. And like I said, I get it, right? Building a factory in India could save Tesla millions, right? We covered it in one of our previous video how Jensen Huang from Nvidia had to go to Beijing to meet with the founder of DeepSeek and some other leaders because he's facing, I think it's like $5.5 billion a quarter just because of the trade war, right? So all these high level companies, they're looking for ways to still make money and not be affected by the tariffs, right? So essentially, Elon's like, yo, building in India could actually save me millions, right? It's just so funny because he's extremely buddy buddy with our president and with the America First crowd, but he's literally going against the whole America First ideology, right? And to be fair, from a business perspective, it obviously makes sense. Labor in India is extremely cheaper, and Tesla can avoid tariffs on Chinese parts. But if you're an American worker hoping for these nice factory jobs to come back that President Trump is promising, hearing this type of news is like a slap in the face, right? You want the manufacturing jobs. Just 20% of us don't really want to swap out the jobs to do that, or swap out our current jobs to do that, right? Again, our current administration is really obsessed with the notion of manufacturing. Now, I'm not saying that there's no merit behind it. It's just that it's not as easy as it looks because America's strength isn't in, making t-shirts or, putting little bolts and screws and laptops and cell phones. And that's not where our strength is. The global economy isn't about who can, bring out the most cheap clothes. It's about innovation, it's about technology, and it's about ideas. Think Google and not factories that you make clothes, right? And it's almost like our administration is kind of stuck in this nostalgic 1950s time warp where, made in USA stickers were like the ultimate way to be a patriot. But the reality is, America's real power is in our universities, our tech giants, and our ability to attract the world's brightest minds. So places like Harvard, MIT, Silicon Valley, those institutions, those places are what makes the United States a powerhouse, not necessarily some fantasy of bringing, t-shirt jobs, back from Vietnam, right? Like, oh, let's go ahead and, assemble AirPods and, toys and different things like that. While at the same time, China is investing in AI. And you guys have seen all my previous videos about China, how it's leading and spearheading the whole AI effort. And again, starting this year, Beijing Municipal Education from China has mandated that children at the age of 6 will start learning how to utilize AI. Now that's a huge, huge feat. While we're still over here in America, we're arguing about tariffs on like socks, hats. You know what I mean? And obviously, China's response to the trade war is predictable. I just saw a news article not too long ago that China is retaliating against other countries who are siding with the United States versus Beijing, right? And some people might feel this way or that way, but China's playing to be the top dog, right? More tariffs, more restrictions, and a whole lot of posturing, right? It's it's like looking at two kids who are arguing over who's going to get the biggest slice of the cake. You ever seen that type of thing? Like, no, me, I want the biggest piece. No, me, I want the big. Like that's what we're looking at with China and the United States. But this isn't like a birthday cake with vanilla and the cream in the no. This is the cake is the global supply chains, and the American consumers, we're the ones paying for it. And where things start to get really wild is while President Trump is really pushing for, bringing back all these factory jobs, different things like that. Some states like Florida under Governor Ron DeSantis are loosening child labor laws. So you have to ask yourself, are we essentially sending our kids back to the factories. So we live in the 1800s now, right? Again, to be fair, the argument for loosening these laws is about giving teenagers more opportunities, like working in restaurants or working in construction. But when you combine this with the push for low skill factory jobs, it starts to feel like a fever dream. We covered it in the last video. My wife has sent me a Facebook ad for farm pickers in Louisiana, paying $11 an hour, working 9 to 10 hours a day, working 7 days a week in the Louisiana summer heat, right? Because we want to pick blueberries or have farm hands, whichever. Who's willing to do that? Those types of jobs. I'm not saying people aren't, but are you, who's listening right now, are you willing to do it, right? So are we really saying, hey, kids, forget school, go put together a battery for a Tesla? Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're encouraging? And I get the whole notion that if everyone works, everybody wins. But forcing children into these low wage jobs isn't necessarily progress. To me, it's kind of like a step backwards, right? And if Tesla is building in India anyway, who's even getting these factory jobs? You guys have seen it in my previous videos. Elon Musk has put out tweets before saying that federal government employees should leave those low productivity jobs for high productivity jobs like manufacturing. So it makes you start to think that were all these federal employees fired and let go so they can be the ones to work in the coal mines and the factories. But if we have companies like Tesla looking to build in India, what was the point of laying these people off if you're not even building the factories that you would have had a workforce to actually go into the factories and work? It's mind-boggling, right? So, where does this leave us? Obviously the trade war with China is obviously getting crazier day by day by day. And Elon, he's trying to play the safe game because he wants to make money in this market no matter what's going on, right? But again, I believe America's strength isn't in going backward. It's about innovation, education, and trying to solve big world problems like curing cancer, tackling homelessness, or ensuring clean water for everyone. My company, You and I Verse, these are some of the goals that we have in the future for sustainability, for a world where things look more clean and we're able to connect on a more holistic type of level. That's my end goal with You and I Verse. But I have to also give you guys what's currently going on in the world to understand the state of the world that we're in now, right? So instead of, fighting over who gets the job of making t-shirts, we should be investing more in universities. Side note, a lot of you guys are seeing that, Harvard has had their funding slashed by our administration. We should be looking at, investing in our universities, attracting global talent, and building the next Googles, the next Teslas right here in the United States. That's how we stay ahead of China, right? The whole idea of capitalism is that it's going to force companies to innovate and compete, not by slapping tariffs on everything and hoping for the best. And let's not try to send our kids to the factories, man. Let's, again, China this year, 6 years old, 6-year-olds are learning how to code, learning how to utilize AI. Let's teach our kids here at those ages, learn how to use AI, how to invent, and at least finish high school before we hand them, pickaxes to go, hit coals in the coal mines. But that's it for today, man. Let me know what you guys think about, Tesla building factories in India, the trade war, and this whole idea of bringing factories and manufacturing jobs back to the United States. Drop a comment, hit that like button, hit that bell notification so you always get notified when I drop a new video. And never ever forget, it's You and I Verse. Information, application, execution. Until next time.